Vashishta. Vashishta was the third of the mind-born sons of Lord Brahma. He was born of the vital breath of Brahma, which makes him a manifestation of the total of life force and potency contained within creation. He is a direct manifestation of prana itself. The seventh mandala of the Rig Veda was cognized by Vashishta. The Rig Veda is the blueprint of creation and is perceptible only by those whose minds are so pure and so highly developed that they can observe directly the process of the unmanifest absolute becoming manifest. The vibrations or waves of manifestation are then brought through all the levels of creation until they are expressed as a speech on this level. The Vedas are the highest scriptures and are not authored by man or the gods, but are perceived directly at the junction between the manifest absolute and the manifest relative creation. In a way, they can be considered as the direct quotes of Almighty God. It is interesting to note that the process of manifestation itself involves prana. The ocean does not rise in waves by itself. The waves are caused by the action of the wind. The wind that causes the silent ocean of the Absolute to manifest in waves of relative creation is prana. Prana is the link between the subtle and the gross on every level of creation, including the very highest level. It is the link between the absolute and the relative. In the West, the Bible states that God said, "Let there be light." In other words, creation began with speech. In the beginning was the Word. The breath of that speech is prana, and the vibration superimposed upon the breath constitute the sounds of the Veda. Vashishta is a direct manifestation of that prana as well as the seer who gave us the seventh mandala of the Rig Veda. The eighth mandala of the Rig Veda, specifically RB 818, says that Vashishta served as the family priest of King Sudes of the Bharatas. There is an interesting story of conjunction with this. At one time, 10 kings rose up in rebellion against King Sudes, the rightful king. Vashishta invoked Indra, the king of the gods, to make the river Parsuni first, easily fordable by Sudes, and then to rise in flood to destroy those who opposed him. The inner, more valuable hidden message of the scriptures is always found in symbology. The symbolism of this story reveals a higher truth, while the exoteric or lower truth is simply the history. The 10 kings in the history symbolize the five senses of perception: sight, taste, touch, hearing, and smell, and the five senses of action: speech, locomotion, grasping, procreation, and elimination. These 10 senses are kings because they rule life on all the lower levels of existence other than spiritual life. In other words, worldly life is always ruled over by one or more of these 10 senses. So thus, the rightful king symbolizes the higher self, the Atman. Indra is the grantor of liberation, and the river is the river of life, the nervous system. Vashishta is the agent of invocation of the power of liberation from worldly life, the mantra. What do you suppose the river rising in flood to destroy the influence of the 10 kings symbolizes? Think about it. A flood is an abundance of water, and an ocean of water symbolizes the absolute. It is important to look into the esoteric meaning of the scriptures because so much more meaning and information can be found here. Many people think scriptures should only be interpreted in a literal way. They feel that to do otherwise invites reading things into the scriptures that are not really there. The scriptures themselves say otherwise. In the Bible, after Christ delivered the parable of the sower and the seed, Matthew 13, Matthew 4, Luke 8, one of his disciples asked him why he thought in parables, and he replied, because it is for some to know the mysteries of the kingdom of God, but for others it is not to be known. In the Nag Hammadi library from the Gospel according to Thomas, Christ says, realize what is before your eyes, and that which is hidden from you will become known to you. The Ramayana tells another story of a great king who visited Vasishta without warning and brought with him his entire army. Vasishta had a cow that was capable of fulfilling any wish. Vasishta used his cow to produce enough food to feed the whole army. The king came to desire the cow very much and asked Vasishta for it, but he refused. The king sent his army to steal it, but a great host issued forth from the cow and completely destroyed the opposing army. The king then performed terrible austerities and obtained a number of celestial weapons, powers that were the fruits of yogic practices. He again came to Vishishta's ashram and destroyed it with a great fireball. This disturbed Vasishta's meditation, and he came to the river's edge, holding the staff of his authority to see what was happening. The king directed a second fireball directly at Vasishta, but the saint merely stood silently as his staff, the symbol of his perfected nervous system, absorbed the threat harmlessly. At this point, the king saw his mistake and fell down at Vasishta's feet seeking spiritual guidance. The reader should ponder on the symbolic meaning of this story for himself. It has great significance. In fact, as meditators, it should be a regular practice to think about the hidden and more significant meaning of all scriptures. Vasishta served as the spiritual master of the avatar Rama. His superficial teachings to Rama are found in the great epic poem, the Ramayana, and his hidden teachings to Rama are contained in the book Yoga Vasishta. Yoga Vasishta contains the information of how you can go from God consciousness to unity consciousness and higher. It is one of only two books to contain this information, the other being the Brahma Sutras, both of which were written by masters of our holy tradition. Vasishta was a householder sage. He was married to Arundhati, and they had a son named Shakti, to whom Vasishta passed the wisdom of transcendental meditation. Here we are in the fourth chapter, named Shakti. Fourth chapter, Shakti. Shakti was the son of the sage Vasishta. He did not recognize any of the Vedas. He did not write commentaries or any of the scriptures, give discourses, nor did he serve as the spiritual master to anyone. He limited himself to only one incarnation, and he died at an early age. As you can imagine, very little is known about this master except for his name. Shakti means the play power of the Absolute. Think about that for a moment. Think of powerful things. The atomic bomb is powerful. It is like the fire of the sun. Only the sun is billions of times more powerful. How big is a billion? Spend $1,000 every day since the time of Christ, and you would not yet have spent $1 billion. The sun is billions of times more powerful than the biggest nuclear bomb ever built. And there are billions upon billions of suns like ours in our galaxy, and there are billions of galaxies in the universe. Think of the energy and power present in the whole universe. It says in the Bhagavad Gita that the whole universe is sustained with but a teeny particle of my, the Absolute's being. B. Gita 10:42. Our biggest clue to the life of this master is that he represents the play power of the Absolute, not just a tiny particle of which runs the whole universe, but the unimaginable infinite power of the Absolute. He represents a totality into which all infinities could be placed. Indeed, the Purana says he was an incarnation of Lord Shiva. Two of the masters of our holy tradition are said to be incarnations of Lord Shiva. They are Shakti and Shankara. Lord Shiva plays a central role in our holy tradition for another reason. As meditators, we go by the path of Lord Shiva. It would be a good idea at this point to discuss him, because it will give us some insight to the nature of these two masters. Lord Shiva. This is a sub-chapter of this fourth chapter. Lord Shiva. Everything that has a beginning must also have an ending. As it says in the Gita, certain indeed is death for the born. Bhagavad Gita 2:27. Everything is aimed unfailingly toward destruction. Mountain ranges, planets, and stars eventually succumb to the power of destruction. The Puranas tell us that even the gods themselves have a finite lifespan. Therefore, the power of destruction must be the closest thing to a limitless power, an absolute power of anything in creation. At the finest level of the power of destruction lies a limitless intelligence that directs its function. This intelligence is known as the great god Shiva. It is said that Shiva dances creation out of existence at the end of time, and after an appropriate resting period, he destroys the silence itself by dancing, and the activity of his dance gives rise to the appearance of Narayana and causes creation to reappear. It is from destruction that creation rises again. It is through destruction that the old ceases to be and the new comes into being. This is the process of evolution. Thus is Lord Shiva known as the great god Maheshwara. Mahesh for short gives you a different view of Maharishi, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Shiva is responsible for creation, evolution, and destruction. There are many aspects of Lord Shiva, and these are indicated by his 1008 names. A few of his aspects will be discussed below. Destruction appears in two different forms. The first is death. Death is a fearful thing for most people. The death of a loved one causes great sorrow. Shiva presides over death and is therefore known as Rudra, the howler and the lord of tears. The second form of death is the death of death itself. In reality, the only things that can die are things of a relative nature. The form that life wears can die, but life itself is eternal. Through the grace of Lord Shiva, we may come to a state where we stop identifying with the relative aspect of ourselves and come to know our true identity as one with the Absolute. This is the death of death itself. It is immortality. It is the total destruction of all limitation, all sorrow, all darkness in our lives, and this miracle can only be brought about by the power of Lord Shiva. That is why he is called Shiva, the auspicious one. He destroys our limitations and our fears. He is the very embodiment of total kindness. He is the Lord of Yogis, presiding over transcendental knowledge. Lord Brahma presides over science because, as the creator, he presides over creation. Science is the study of creation. Lord Vishnu presides over religions because religions are the means for transforming our lives to higher and higher levels. But it is through Lord Shiva alone that we can transcend the relative and achieve liberation from worldly life altogether. As meditators, we are on the path of Lord Shiva. In incarnating as Shakti, Shiva took the form that expressed his power and authority. He only allowed one incarnation in this form, and he allowed himself to be slain by the demon Kalmashapada at an early age. The reason Shakti allowed his earthly life to be terminated at an early age is so that he could exist fractionally in all the devas, gods, and in spiritually developed people. Shakti is the sole power that such people exhibit. He is also the inner spiritual strength of all the gods. Shakti is as inseparable from Shiva as heat is from fire. He is often thought of as the feminine inner self of the masculine outer form. The scriptures often refer to Shakti in the feminine form because of this. It is quite incorrect to limit a god to one gender, but because of their authority and power, they are most often thought of as masculine. Their inner divine power therefore takes on a feminine aspect. While on earth, Shakti lived the life of a householder. He was married to Adrishanti and they had a son named Parashara, to whom he passed the wisdom of transcendental meditation. While on earth, Shakti lived the life of a householder. He was married to Adrishanti and they had a son named Parashara, to whom he passed the wisdom of transcendental meditation. Shakti dropped his physical form before Parashara was born. The question arises, how then did he pass the wisdom on to his son? The physical form is actually a limitation, not an aid. Once a person has achieved liberation, Shakti had no limitations. He could impart the wisdom to his son regardless of whether he was in a physical body or not. And the next chapter will be precisely about Parashara, the son of Shakti.